another QuickBooks training moment with Steiner Business Solutions. This is Doug again, and this is part 3 of our tour of the preferences section of QuickBooks. Enjoy. Alright, under reminders, this just gives you all the different things that QuickBooks will remind you of. You can turn these reminders on and off, set when they remind you, and things like that. It's pretty self-explanatory, so you can look through any of these that might be helpful to you. Personal preferences, the only thing is if you wanted to show the reminder list when you first open the company file of all the things that are due or coming close to being due. Reports and graphs, start with personal preferences. Here just choose preferences of whether you want it to refresh automatically or not, whether you want your graphs to be in 2 dimensions because it's faster, or use patterns. Company preferences. Your reports. Do you report on an accrual basis or cash basis? Important one, it's defaulting to accrual, but you may want to report on a cash basis, and I believe I covered that in one of my other videos, exactly what all that means. And then this is, again, just things that will show up on your reports and how they show up. Aging reports. Do you want to age from the due date or the transaction date? How do you want things to be sorted and shown on the reports? And then you can actually go in and do some formatting for reports from here as well. Sales and customers. Alright, sales forms. Usual shipping method. You can put a default using usual shipping method here if you want, or if you use FOB shipping. One about duplicate invoice numbers for your customers if you're doing customer invoices. Are you going to use sales orders? That's what this is here, is you turn the sales orders on. And then it can warn you about duplicate ones, print items with 0 amounts when converting to an invoice, things like that. Default packing slips used if you use packing slips, things like that. Enable price levels if you use different price levels. That's a little more advanced for QuickBooks, but it's defaulted to being on, I believe. And personal preferences, add available time cost to invoices. So if you have time in timesheets, it'll prompt you whether or not you want to add it to your invoices for those jobs. Sales tax, no personal preferences. It's just, are you going to charge? First thing is, do you charge sales tax, yes or no? So do you want QuickBooks to help you keep track of what sales tax you've collected and what you owe? And you turn this on. And it goes into setting up default tax amounts for your localities and your state. You can set them up here depending on what kind of taxes you have to collect. Different tax item codes in your item list. You have to have an item for the tax. And when do you owe sales tax? Are you going to pay it after it's been invoiced to your client, or are you only going to pay it after your invoices have been received? You have that option to choose. And then how often are you paying? Search function. This gives you very little bit of options here, but helps you pick how you're going to do your searches, how your searches work in QuickBooks. Personal preferences there. Send forms. This is if you want to be able to email forms. You can set the default method of how you're going to send certain forms and which default form you're using for each thing you're doing. You want the email letter checkbox to automatically be defaulted to every time you create an invoice. That's what you use that for. Webmail. If you want to use Webmail, you have to go connect it to a specific webmail that you have. You'd have to go down here and add that, connect it to your personal email or your business email, or you can use QuickBooks email and you have to have a subscription for that, and then you can email things right out of QuickBooks, but there is a separate cost for that. Service connection, pretty self-explanatory here. Turn these things on and off. How do you want your connection to QuickBooks services? Do you want them to automatically connect, or do you want it to always ask you for a password? If it defaults to, you set it up and connect it with its password, appropriate password and everything, and then you don't have to do that every time. It'll automatically connect. But if for some reason For security reasons you want it to ask for the password every time, you can have that setting in. Spelling, this is only a personal preference. Do you want it to check spelling before printing, saving, or sending supported forms? Certain forms it'll go through and check spelling for you if you have that turned on. 1099s, no personal preferences, company preference. Do you use 1099s or no? If you do yes, and that way it'll track it. You'll have that option on the vendor setup screen. Each vendor, you can check whether they're a 1099 or not and put in their appropriate 1099 information, their federal ID number and such, and then there's a whole module here under the vendors menu where you can track that information and print the 1099 reports. And finally is time and expenses. Under the company preferences, do you track time? That means, do you want to use the timesheets that come in QuickBooks? Yes or no? And then there's more preferences based on that. What's the first day of your week? That kind of thing. Obviously the timesheets could be used for payroll, but they can also be used for tracking time that you're going to bill to your customers. Right here, this is an example. Do you want to be able to create invoices from time and expenses? Do you want to track reimbursed expenses as income? Do you want to mark all expenses as billable? And then if you want to have a default markup on those costs, then you can assign that here. No personal preferences for this option. So this is the preference menu under Edit. As you can see, this is there's a lot of information. We had to go through multiple videos just to get through it all. I recommend you go through and kind of play with some of these things. I might have gone through some of these kind of quickly, and there are so many options. I couldn't go over every single option there is, but there's a lot of information there, and you can play with a lot of these things and see if any of those things help you. Some of those you might have already been looking for and you didn't know where to turn on sales orders. That's where you go, that kind of thing. Thanks for watching our video. Always appreciate you guys coming out. Check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're in all those places, and you should see a little button at the top of the screen where you can click on and subscribe to our videos, subscribe to our YouTube page, and every time I put out a new video, you'll be one of the first to know about it. Thanks again. Have a great day.